Welcome to the Thought Brothers. It's January 31st, last day of the month, according to my DC public school education. And we're going to kick it off with the agitator, AKA William Spivey. What do you got, Mr. Spivey? Talk to us.
What's happening, Thought Brothers? How you doing, Carlos?
Doing all right, Mr. Spivey. What's happening?
How you doing, CJ?
What's up?
And
What's up,
Mr.
Mr.
Johnson? You know, I'm gonna kick it off. I want to talk about playoff weekend, but I'm playoff weekend. But I'm gonna only concentrate on one game, and I'll let Carlos pick up the other one. But I want to talk about the Kansas City and the Ravens game. You know, it was a lot. I read a lot, heard a lot, and I think I've mentioned this one time before last weekend. And Carlos sent out a text and talked about how disappointed he was with Lamar Jackson. And so I've even seen something that said Lamar Prescott, which I thought was really cold-blooded. But I wanted to defend Lamar Jackson. I mean, now don't get me wrong, I'm still a Cowboy fan and will be until the day I die. But I wanted to defend this young man because, you know, it pains me a lot of times that the game has evolved to the point that it's centered around nobody but the quarterback. And if a game is lost, the quarterback gets the blame. No matter how the defense plays, good or bad, the quarterback is the one that ultimately gets the blame. So I just want to kind of break down this game with Kansas City and the Ravens. The score was 17-10. And in doing some research, Mahomes threw for 241 yards. Jackson threw for 272 yards. Mahomes only rushed for 15 yards. Jackson rushed for 54 yards. He was 20 of 37 passing. That doesn't sound like Lamar Jackson choked. But I'm going to tell you what people don't talk about when they talk about Lamar Jackson. Nobody talks about that kid, Zay Flowers, who caught a pass at the 10-yard line and then was taunting, stood over the guy and taunted him and got a 15-yard penalty, which took the ball all the way back to the 25-yard line. Then later on, Flowers fumbled in the end zone from the 1-yard line instead of going down, tried to dive in the end zone. And what happened? He fumbled the ball. Ball goes back to Kansas City. And I think Kelce, the Ravens supposedly have a defensive back. His name is Hamilton. He's supposed to be the creme de la creme of the defensive back. Kelce caught 11 passes on him for 116 yards. So I'm just trying to break down some of the things that happened during the game. Now, getting back to Pacheco, he ran for a touchdown. Kansas City scored every time they got the ball up until I think it was the third quarter. They had to punt. So, you know, I want to talk about other people getting the blame. Now, another penalty, which I think Lamar Jackson could have possibly pulled this game out. It was in the fourth quarter. I think it was only 2 minutes and 48 seconds left in the game. And Smith bust across the line for no apparent reason and knocked Trey Smith on his ass. Guess what the penalty was? 15 yards. The next play, Mahomes threw a pass for what? 30 yards to Scantling and ended the game. So when people sit around and they want to blame Lamar Jackson for losing the game, you know, you need to sit around and look at these other players who cost the game. There was 2 penalties. One that Mahomes threw to Kelce for a touchdown. It was a penalty where Mahomes was hit in the head. Twice you got roughing the quarterback, and they ended up in touchdowns. So I want to get your opinion on why do you think why do you think Lamar Jackson needs to take the blame for this loss when you had all these other idiots that were doing these costly 15-yard penalties?
May I elaborate?
Please do.
Hey, check this out. I'm gonna break this down real quick and easy, right? Has anybody ever heard of Roger Staubach?
Yes.
Anybody ever heard of Terry Bradshaw?
Yes.
Anybody ever heard of, I guess, Joe Namath,
Yes.
Troy Aikman,
Yes.
even Doug Williams?
Yes.
Oh, he was the guy that took Washington to the Super Bowl, was the most valuable player. And then the next year you traded him. Is that the
Okay.
Doug Williams you're talking about?
So here's the point I'm trying to make. I hear Mr. Spivey, right? But the point I'm trying to make is you can have all the stats in the world. You know, you can run for 1,000 yards as a quarterback. You can throw 30-plus touchdown passes in the regular season. But true champions win. They play big in big games. Troy Aikman ain't going to beat Lamar Jackson in career stats, but he got 3 Super Bowl trophies. Terry Bradshaw might not beat Joe Theismann in stats, but he got 4 Super Bowl trophies. Joe Namath, I think he had 1 knee most of his career. His stats ain't going to beat anybody, but he got a Super Bowl trophy. Doug Williams, you know what? Doug Williams played his best football in the one opportunity he got to the biggest game of his life. He played his best game. He got a Super Bowl ring. All I'm saying is, if you're a quarterback, your stats, and if he wins MVP, doesn't make a difference. You have to play big in big games. Even wide receivers like Lynn Swann can't touch Jerry Rice, but they play big in big games. So all I'm saying is Lamar Jackson, in order for him to get over the hump, he's going to have to find a way to play big in big games. That's all I'm saying. I love Lamar.
So basically what you're saying is, you're saying he threw for 272 yards. It doesn't mean anything.
Not if you don't win.
20 for 37.
You don't win.
I mean, so Lamar Jackson is the only person that could have won that game. Is that basically what you're saying?
No, and keep this in mind. Zay Flowers, they had too many. The Ravens had like maybe 5 personal fouls against them during the game.
15 yards each time.
Okay, so keep this in mind. That's not characteristic of a Jim Harbaugh team. Okay, was it Jim or John? I always get them confused. John for Ravens.
Jim Harbaugh.
Jim. Okay, Jim Harbaugh team. It's not characteristic. Okay, so I think that killed him. You can't have all those penalties in a big game, too. That's going to kill you. And Zay Flowers, being a rookie, he looked like a rookie. He didn't hold on to the ball going into the end zone. I thought they could have definitely came back. I think what it basically came down to was just too many mistakes by the rookie Zay Flowers, too many mistakes by the other players on the team with the personal fouls. And then Lamar, like I said, Mahomes keeps finding a way to win. But in order to be considered a great quarterback at the end of your career, you're going to have to win big games. That's all I'm saying. I love Lamar. Lamar is entertaining, man. Lamar can make things happen, but Mahomes keeps winning.
All right, CJ, get in there.
I'm going to have to side with Mr. Spivey on this one. I'm sorry. Like I said, I don't know what more you want from Lamar Jackson. People said, like, I understand that running is a part of his game, but he stays in the pocket, duels Patrick Mahomes in a tough playoff game all the way through. And despite all the mistakes, despite all the stuff you just talked about, Zay Flowers, the penalties, the Ravens were still right in that game to the very end. And so I don't think you can put this on Lamar. Obviously, the quarterback's always going to take the more blame than anyone, but I don't see that Lamar was the one that lost him that game. Like, honestly, you could say maybe some of the play calling and things like that, but at the same time, he didn't play a terrible game. Like, I've seen quarterbacks play terrible games and lay eggs, and that's not what that was. I think it was just a more disciplined and better Kansas City team that showed up, like I said, played more mistake-free football. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the game right now, and he showed up and he played like he was. And that's just what it is. Sometimes you just lose to a better team. And, you know, the Ravens will be back. Zay Flowers is a rookie, as you said, but despite those mistakes, he had a sensational season. And he looks like he will be an elite receiver in the league, you know, one day as he, you know, matures a little bit. So the Raven and Lamar Jackson's still not even 30 years old. You know, he's still got, he'll be back. The Ravens are a good team. They're a good franchise. So I think it's just 2 good teams played and the better team won that day. I don't see this as a huge fumble or a huge, you know, terrible game from Lamar Jackson.
CJ, I agree with you. And the bottom line to this game was there was 2 minutes and 48 seconds left in this game. I think Mahomes and them had a 3rd down play coming up. If they had stopped him on 3rd down, Lamar would have gotten the ball back under 2 minutes. This clown, Smith, he just bust over the line. The offensive player never moved and knocked the guy on his ass. 15 yards in 1st and 10. That's where the game ended. Because once Mahomes hit Scantling for that 20-yard pass, that gave him a second first down, and the game was over. They ran the clock out. You can't put that on Lamar Jackson. I mean, you can compare him to Troy Aikman, Broadway Joe, Terry Bradshaw. But I tell you what, if either one of them had been playing during this game, guess what? They'd have lost too.
All right, and look,
and
that's a good way to end your time. I will just say this. There were some dumb, undisciplined penalties, a couple of them. I thought the criticism against Lamar was unfair. I didn't think it was a choke job. I kind of agree with, I mean, look, on the Thought Brothers, you never know what's going to happen here. So we have CJ and Mr. Spivey in agreement. We will not note that for January 31st. But that's just now.
Let me write that one down.
Yeah, look, it's still early in the show, so we still got a couple more segments, so that can split. There could be a divorce here. So, Carlos.
Yes, sir.
Brother, let's keep it rolling with your 10 minutes. Go.
All right, man. One more thing I want to throw out there, even though we're on my time right now. Mr.
It's your time. You do what you want.
He made a good point about Kelce catching the passes with Hamilton. Now, keep this in mind. Kelce's a tight end. Generally, when tight ends come off the line, okay, they're usually covered by linebackers. They're not usually covered by defensive backs. So Hamilton's a defensive back. But the point that I really want to point out is the fact that Washington could have had Hamilton. The Commanders could have had Hamilton. They chose the boy from Mississippi State, whose middle name or first name has now been changed to Toast because he gets burnt so much. They could have had. They missed on another great player. So with that being said, moving on to the Detroit-San Francisco game. You know, I picked Detroit. Detroit started out great. I think that the issue was what you saw was an inexperienced head coach for Detroit. You know, now next year when he gets back to the playoffs, he'll be experienced. But this first time in the playoffs as a head coach, and obviously when you got a 27-10 lead on a great team and your running game is working, run the ball. He decided that he was going to put the dagger in the heart, I guess, by passing, and it backfired. And next thing you know, San Francisco had scored all these unanswered points, and they won the game. So I guess that what that really tells me is that San Francisco probably is the better team. Detroit is a very good team. They're up and coming. I think they will be back in the playoffs next year. With that being said, it's amazing that their team was able to find, a 7th-round quarterback that is also a candidate for MVP. So I'm glad the Commanders actually hired their assistant general manager because I'm hoping he was able to spot talent, needs to spot talent. So with that being said, I'm not going to spend too much time on that game because the fact is San Francisco, I think, is a better team. They won. They beat Detroit. And now we're looking at Kansas City versus, San Francisco. So I guess the biggest question is, will Taylor Swift make it back from her concert in Tokyo? Yeah. Is she more popular than Donald Trump right now in the country?
Yeah.
I heard she's generated over $331 million in NFL sales somehow, or advertisements or something, because now people are I don't know if it's endorsements, but she's generated $331 million. So good for Taylor Swift. Good for Travis Kelce. I guess he don't have to worry about his girlfriend hitting him up for any cash. He'll probably be hitting her up for some cash. So good for them. With that being said, has anybody heard what's happening on the East Coast with the Commanders? The guy they wanted from Detroit, he just said, I'll just stay at Detroit. I don't want to coach. He's going to stay at Detroit. Then they wanted the Ravens defensive coordinator. I'll take a job in Seattle. They're the last team in the league trying to get a head coach. So what we're going to do now? So this is where that new head general manager and president of the team is going to have to find a way to find a head coach that is unknown who can be successful. Maybe he stays with Eric Bieniemy. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But this is where he's really going to have to earn his money. Coach Harbaugh for the Ravens, okay, he was a special teams coach for the Eagles. I don't think he was on too many people's radars to be a head coach. I think the hot head coaching prospect at the same time was what's that? Jason Garrett from the Cowboys, because he actually interviewed with the Ravens for that job, but he decided to stay an assistant with the Cowboys to try to get the Cowboys head coaching job, which he did, but he's come and gone. Harbaugh has stayed for 15 years and won a Super Bowl and probably will win one more before he leaves. So I think the key is with this new general manager, he's really going to have to dig deep. If he doesn't, then Eric Bieniemy, I think, will probably be the best choice for him. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, I think it's just a crazy, setup right now in the NFL as far as that job goes. So let me throw it back to you guys. What are you guys' thoughts again on the Super Bowl? It's part one, and then part two on the Commanders head coaching job. Come on, Mr. Spivey. I know you love talking about those Commanders. What you got?
Well, the only thing I will say, Carlos, it's sad that nobody wants to be the head coach of the Commanders. But on the same hand, you all have an experienced head coach that's out there on the market, Bill Belichick. And I don't understand why you all wouldn't want his knowledge and everything to impugn upon your players. On the real side, I think things are playing out the way that they should play out. And I think Eric Bieniemy should get that job. I mean, I think he's paid his dues. And you talk about Harbaugh. Harbaugh, I did not know until the playoff games, but he worked under Andy Reid for 10 years.
Yes, he did.
As a coordinator. And so he learned quite well. That's why I'm not surprised at his success. But I'm going to turn it over to CJ. But I do want to say this. Carlos, your record is pretty bad. You picked the Ravens.
Oh, Lord.
They trashed. And you picked Detroit. So you picked Detroit and the Ravens to play in the Super Bowl.
I was Cowboys to win too, because they went home.
What I was strongly suggesting, my thought, brother, is don't make no pick for the Super Bowl.
Woo, I was good last year. Come on, man. I was close. I said Kansas City was going to win it 38-35, and a turnover for Kansas City was going to be the difference. And the final score was 37-34 Kansas City, and a turnover was a difference by number 32 for Kansas City on defense. So I don't count me out yet. I don't know.
So who are you picking for the Super Bowl?
I mean, I'm gonna have to pick Kansas City and Mahomes. Can I bet against Mahomes right now? Can I bet against him, Kelsey, and Taylor Swift? Probably not. And look, Andy Reid has gone from will he ever win a Super Bowl to now being considered one of the greatest coaches ever if he wins a third Super Bowl. So hey, what can you do, man? What can you do? That's it. What you got, CJ? What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I thought both games were good. I was really interesting because Brock Purdy is probably the first quarterback where I have no idea how good he is. Because sometimes he looks so average and his arm looks so average and he just looks like some college kid that wandered on the football field and padded up. And then he'll make some incredible plays. I'm talking like with his legs, he made some incredible plays. He was dodged some sacks. And that dime he threw in the end zone between two guys was just a pinpoint laser. So it's just like he's surrounded by so much talent. It's really hard to judge him sometimes, but it's like, is he just game managing a bunch of superstars? Or is he the superstar? Or is it somewhere in between? I'm still not sure. I know he's good, but I'm not quite sure how good. But I know that San Francisco is super fun to watch. And they just, like I said, they're loaded everywhere. Except with Chase Young. I don't know if you guys saw that clip of Chase Young.
I did.
Getting killed.
You talking about that former commander?
Oh my God. Hey, look, is that guy up for a contract? Because he's playing like he wants to get cut. The guy ran past him,
bad.
And when he swiped his hand, he didn't die or anything. What the hell? What was that, man? Yeah. I would have dove. Yeah. I would have dove at the guy. Come on, man. Hey, look, I was gonna say Chase Young on defense. That he might, because they got to pay him, right? They got to renew his contract. He might have played himself out of $100 million contract.
I'm about to say they don't have to pay him like the way he's playing.
They don't. They can let him go and let him go to the free agent on the market. So that's going to be real interesting. If he doesn't have a good Super Bowl, Chase Young, that's interesting. That is very. But how about this one? I heard today that Brock Purdy. Y'all gonna laugh at this, right? My man Brock Purdy because he's a 7th-round draft pick. So his salary is $825,000 a year currently until he gets paid. He lives in the San Francisco area, which is the 3rd highest median priced area in the country. When they say 3rd, I thought it was tops. I'm assuming maybe behind Boston and New York, or Boston, and I'll say Manhattan. Okay, but I thought San Francisco was number 1 that area. But anyway, they say Brock is splitting rent with some linemen or something. Like he's renting an apartment with some linemen, and they splitting rent out in the San Francisco area. So he's a young guy. I guess he ain't got no roots. He ain't got no kids. He ain't married. So he's like, I don't know where he's from. So I guess he's like, let's go in an apartment together because I'm only making $825 after taxes. That's probably $425. After he puts some money in the bank, he might be like an average guy on the street, man, with some Levi's and some Nikes, man. I mean, he might be driving like a Mazda 626 or something, man. I don't know, but he gonna get paid. He win this Super Bowl, Brock is gonna get paid, brother. That's how I feel about it, man. That's about all I got on the sports scene right now. So I know my time is winding down, man, but that's where I'm at. What you think, Gary?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think Brock is gonna get paid whether he wins the Super Bowl or not. And the thing you talk about, they talked about that early on in the season. He shares a place with a roommate, and
that is funny as hell.
I'm really happy for Brock Purdy because I get so sick and tired of listening to these people talk about he went number 1 in the draft. He went number 2 in the draft. Some of the best players in the NFL went low in the draft. So that tells me the draft is BS. Because if you sit back,
the people don't know how to scout talent.
That's exactly right.
Amen to that.
Mayhew picking players, so you know people are missing.
Yeah.
All right, CJ.
Well, I guess this is a good segue to a CNN business article yesterday that half of U.S. tenants can't afford to pay their rent. So that might explain why Brock Purdy is having roommates. Also, homelessness is at an all-time high. So it's funny, but it's also not funny because it's a real epidemic that a player that is a star quarterback in the NFL realizes that it is not smart for him to try to afford a place by himself in a major city like that is kind of a symptom of where we're at right now in America, which is pretty dystopian right now. So beyond that, moving into just the news this week. Well, let's stick to the football related news too, because Taylor Swift is also in the news for political reasons as well.
You got that right.
Melting down because they fear that she might endorse Biden. And, she would be the prototypical, she has so much power of white America that they really need those white women votes. And that's what Taylor Swift could deliver to them. But she's not rocking with Trump, and they are now calling Taylor Swift a psyop from the CIA to convince people to vote for Biden somehow. Like, this is what serious, like, I'm dead serious that they're on Fox News talking about this nonstop, how Taylor Swift is a psyop and all this. And it just reminded me of one of the greatest tweets I saw this week, where there was a picture of her and Kanye West and from that incident way back at that award show. And it's just like, if you showed this to a time traveler and asked them which one would be a Nazi and which one would be a liberal icon, they would get it wrong because this is crazy. Now we got Kanye doing Nazi stuff, Taylor Swift dating the white football player from Middle America. It's like a perfect Republican story, but they're afraid that she's going to endorse Biden. So instead of, solving the problems like, the half of renters not being able to afford their rent or, any one of the many problems we have in America, healthcare, their issue is Taylor Swift, which just goes back to how deeply, deeply unserious the Republican Party is, where they don't have any solutions to any problems. So they have to invent problems. Another one is the DEI, the diversity and inclusion thing that they're going on about. Like they have to invent issues to be issues because they don't have any interest in solving people's actual issues. So the reason I talk about Democrats so much and not the GOP is because they're not even a serious party and worth talking about. They're not offering anything. And I can highlight how much they suck, but that's pretty obvious to most people if you're not in the Trump bubble or something like that. So I'm more highlighted on the people that are supposed to be saving us from the GOP that are doing a piss poor job right now, or beyond a piss poor job there's a new poll that came out today that Biden is down in all the swing states to Donald Trump right now. Donald Trump, the weaker of the two candidates, because Nikki Haley is actually a stronger general election candidate than Donald Trump. But I think Trump's going to get the nomination, barring prison. But we're still going down the same road that we seem to go down every week as it gets worse in terms of the war in Gaza and the response to it. Nancy Pelosi was in the news this week for just basically being a national embarrassment on CNN and talking about how the pro-Gaza, the pro-Palestinian protesters are paid Russian agents. I don't know where my check is, but I mean, if Putin is late on the check, I need to, he needs to holler at your boy, because I didn't know this was a side, I didn't know we were all being paid for, so that's news to me. And then the next day, Pelosi was met by protesters and said, this is go back to China or something. So I don't know if it's a China check I'm waiting for, or Russia, or who's supposed to be sending me the check for caring about Palestinian lives, but I would like my check. But that is a disgraceful way to go against 80% of your own party, which is another reason they're kind of struggling in the polls right now, because there's really no way to justify arming a genocide, which again is kind of a deal breaker for a lot of people. So I don't know why they continue to go down that path, even though it's looking like it's going to guarantee we get another Donald Trump presidency, which I don't know if I can handle, but it looks like that's what the Biden administration is determined to deliver to us. So I would, like to try to just figure out where we go from here, honestly, because I saw another story this week that we shared off air earlier this week with Jim Clyburn having issues trying to get young Black voters to vote for Biden, because they did this last election cycle. They didn't deliver anything, and now it's an election cycle again, and it's like, hey, we need your votes. And now people are like, it's really frustrating, and it's really disingenuous, because you have to understand that the fact that these people couldn't feel the difference between a Biden and Trump presidency is an indictment on Biden in itself. If Trump is so bad and all the things that are supposed to be happening under Trump are happening now, like what are we voting for? And that is what a lot of people are trying to understand, and what Biden can't seem to make an argument for, other than, hey, Trump is worse than me. Okay, yeah, I think most people feel that, and some people don't, which is even crazier. Like, again, some people are just not going to vote. And like I said, 10 million people don't vote every election cycle anyway, and it's going to keep getting worse as we have really no choices of change and no opportunity to kind of get out of this cycle of lesser of two evils every 4 years. Lesser of two evils every 4 years. And it keeps getting more evil and every time. And we're getting, I don't know how further to the bottom of the barrel we can get from Trump to Biden. Like, I don't know who else are we going to run OJ or something? Like, I don't know how much worse we can get, but we're scraping the bottom of the barrel here. And I just think as an American people, we could do better. So I don't know. Any thoughts? Anybody want to jump in on any of that?
Taylor Swift could win. I think she's going to be 35 to be president. She's like 34. I think Taylor Swift can win. If you think about the history of America, right, and as far as political candidates, Ronald Reagan used to be an actor. Now, we may not remember him as an actor because he was an actor before we were all born. Well, most of us were born. But he was an actor. I mean, you got Arnold Schwarzenegger. I remember when I was a little kid, I'm peeking around the corner and they got Johnny Carson on the TV screen. And I think Arnold Schwarzenegger just came out with Conan the Barbarian or something, the movie. And Johnny Carson said something to the effect of, wow, Ronald Reagan's going to be president. That's crazy. So what are you going to tell me, that Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to be like governor one day, or president of the United States one day? Oh, Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor. So I think popularity in this country, it seems that Trump, whether you actually are qualified or not, well, it's funny I said Trump, right? Seems to Trump whether you're qualified to be president or not. So what do you think about it, Mr. Spivey and CJ? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's funny that CJ brought that up, and I don't know how much you've been keeping up with it, but I think Taylor Swift has endorsed Biden. And I was listening to, and I sent Gary a text and told him to turn to Joy Reid last evening, because they were talking about Taylor Swift has angered the MAGA followers for Trump, because she apparently voiced her endorsement of Biden, and they had over 35,000 young people registered to vote within a few hours after she made that endorsement. And they say that the young voters now have rose roughly 20% following her endorsement. And I heard that crazy mess that CJ just talked about with
Taylor Swift's going to save us. Taylor Swift's going to
it's
save
supposed to be some kind of conspiracy, and they're saying that also it's some kind of conspiracy for Kansas City to win the Super Bowl. And it is really crazy, but she's really created a rift within the Republican Party, because I did not know until listening to the Joy Reid show that the Nazis, the skinheads, had claimed her as their girl about a year or two ago, and she denounced them, and she's probably going to be pulling for Biden.
Give me some Taylor Swift. I'm liking Taylor. I'm going to go get me that 1989 record.
Yeah, I didn't see that she had directly endorsed Biden, but she did endorse Democrats in her state. And then that did get all the young people to vote and stuff like that. So like I said, I think they're afraid that she will come out with a full-fledged Biden endorsement and not just for like the local Democrats, because she's been trying to largely stay out of politics, you know, just for her celebrity status. She don't want to alienate certain fans and money. So it's like, I understand, but like that's where that goes. And speaking of Joy Reid, did you hear her nice hot mic moment this week? She got caught on the hot mic talking about Biden starting another effing war on air.
Yeah.
And had to come back and apologize. But shout out to her for not really apologizing. She basically said, I apologize, you guys heard me. But she didn't say I apologize for what I said. So shout out to Joy Reid for that, for keeping it real. Her Gaza coverage has also been pretty good too. So I gotta give props where it's due.
As a matter of fact, Fox News, what is it? Waters, was it the young dude? He had on his show the Joy Reid hot mic moment.
Oh yeah.
You know? Oh yeah. Yeah. So they trying to get some miles out of it.
I did see a video of Tim Scott was with Hannity, and he was crying like a little girl.
Go ahead and say it.
He was crying like a little girl, saying the liberals that are racist and they are discriminating against him because of him telling Trump that he loved him on the stage. I'm really surprised he didn't drop down on his knees. I'm sure that's coming next.
Hey, look, we're gonna close it out, Mr. Spivey. You got your 3 minutes. You don't have to use it all if you don't want, but you got 3 minutes. Let's close it out. Do what you want to do. Talk about the Super Bowl or whatever you want to do.
Well, I'm not gonna take 3 minutes. I foresee that the Super Bowl game is gonna be a good game. I believe that Mahomes will win another Super Bowl, but I think Brock Purdy will be a formidable opponent. San Francisco, they have as CJ said, they have a powerhouse. You got Brock Purdy back there, and you got McCaffrey, who I think is probably going to be one of the people that's up for the most valuable player of the year. And also, you got DB Sanders. And if you got those guys back there, they're hell to deal with. And the game that between San Francisco and Detroit, San Francisco came back simply because, and I think San Francisco would have lost that game, but they came back simply because the Detroit offensive coordinator, believe it or not, only ran 8 plays, running plays, in the second half of that game. And that opened the door for San Francisco. If they can shut down your running game, it's just the bottom line. McCaffrey is probably one of the hardest running backs that I've seen in the game in a long time. And then you got Debo. Once he gets his hands on the ball, he runs just as hard as McCaffrey. But I'm going to go with Mahomes, but I think it's going to be a good game. And I'm going to say this, it could go either way. So some people may plan to be surprised.
Okay. All right, Carlos, you got your 3. You don't have to use it all, but you do what you want to do.
Hey, a couple things. Like I said, I agree with Mr. Spivey. That doesn't happen often, but I agree with him. we'll go ahead and say Kansas City. I think it'll be a good game. I think Purdy will hold his own. Two good teams. I think Mahomes just has that magic working, man. I think he's going to make it happen. Okay, so that's my take on that. With that being said, we talk about the Taylor Swift effect. Wouldn't that be something if literally Biden wins because of younger voters who came out and registered? Because that was one of the key issues that CJ's been speaking about the last few weeks, that, younger voters, they're just voting for the lesser of two evils. But what if the younger voters actually show up in droves and actually vote for Biden? I mean, how do you think Obama got elected? Obama got elected with people born after 1980. He didn't get elected with people born before 1960. So it is very possible. And if Kansas City wins and they put the camera on her and she somehow doesn't make it back, even if she doesn't make it back, she's probably doing commercials with Travis Kelce, or whatever. They'll be seen wherever in Hollywood or wherever they go. I don't know, downtown Kansas City. Who knows? But anyway, the point is, I think that could be a legitimate X factor. People love celebrities for some reason. And she appears to be, I don't know much about her background. I don't think she comes from money. I think that's why she's been able to relate to a lot more people and probably endorses Biden. I think she just happened to turn herself into a millionaire, or probably a billionaire at this point. And, she's dating, like I said, like CJ said, down to earth guy, man. I don't know. I think people that's going to resonate with a lot of people. I think we might have to keep our eyes on this from a political standpoint more so than ever. I met a guy who I didn't even know. He just walked up to me and said, because he heard me talking about football. He says, hey, man, Kansas City's going to win. And then he says, Taylor Swift's going to endorse Biden. And he walked off and laughed. I didn't know who this guy was. And I'm like, this is what people are really seeing and feeling out here? So I think that's crazy. With that being said, with all the things that are going on in the world, and I'm down to less than a minute, I just want to shed some light on some, besides football and politics, crime is still there. I mean, there was an unfortunate incident in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, or DMV area this past week, where a lady from Baltimore drove down to Prince George's County and literally bumped like several cars in traffic. And when the people got out, she stabbed them. Mm-hmm. And there were multiple victims. I think somebody's still in intensive care in the hospital. There was no apparent reason. I'm still trying to figure out. I'm waiting for the apparent reason every day on the news, and it doesn't happen. So that's terrible. And then I heard about the teen girl sentenced to 5 years in fatal DC stabbing a friend after dispute over McDonald's sweet and sour sauce. Mm-hmm. So while we're enjoying sports, and while we're tuning into politics, I'm just going to send a shout out to everybody in their communities, man. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, and let's see if we can spread some more love instead of violence, because we got to figure out what's going on, man, and do a little bit better for ourselves and our friends, family, and community. That's what I got.
All right. Thank you, sir. CJ, close us out.
Well, I'll keep it going based on that. And the rampant crime, all the terrible economic conditions, that's one of the reasons that even Taylor Swift might not be able to save Joe Biden. Not even if Beyonce and Taylor Swift came out together and did an endorsement, I don't know if that'd be able to save Joe Biden for the reasons you just spoke about. Like, there's so many issues at home, no healthcare system. Half of people can't afford rent, like I just said from the CNN article yesterday. There's rampant crime. If you've been in DC lately, you could just see it as objectively. There's crime everywhere. It's out of control. We have all these domestic issues. And then Joe Biden's priority is sending more money and weapons to Israel. And also, we're getting ready to enter a broader war, going back to Joanne Reed being frustrated with Biden starting another effing war, because we're about to end up fighting a war with Iran on Israel's behalf, because now we're attacking all these Iran-backed militias in defensive strikes. There's no such thing as a self-defense missile strike on somebody. That's not self-defense on a country that didn't attack you. So we're bombing Yemen, we're bombing places in Syria, we're doing all this. We had 3 service members die in protecting an oil field in Syria this week. So we're doing all that while we have all these issues at home. And then the Biden administration's logic is, these are random militias that attacked us, but we're going to hold Iran responsible because Iran is supplying them weapons. Not hearing the irony of what he just said out loud, because guess who's supplying Israel with all their weapons for their war crimes? Us. So like he has no awareness. Maybe it's the age, maybe it's just, like I said, maybe he's just past his prime, but like, this is not a leader that we can have and his justification is, oh, we're going to hit back. We're going to continue to hit back. We're going to hit back. People, eventually, as humanity, we need to evolve beyond this cycle of violence, because every war ends at a negotiation table. Every war ends with a treaty, every one. So why not just skip all the murder and all the killing that accomplishes nothing but making arms dealers rich and weapons contractors rich? Why don't we just sit down to the table and maybe try to take a step forward as humanity and just end these endless, useless wars? We're bombing children with the money that we need to be spending at home to get these homeless people off the streets, to address this crime and all these economic conditions. I don't want to see that money used to bomb poor brown countries. So that is something that Joe Biden needs to rectify, or he's absolutely going to get smoked in this election.
All right. Folks, now you know why we call this show The Thought Brothers. That is our show for this evening. Until next week, we are out of here.
Good evening.
Good night, everyone.